These days, I'm very busy editing my book, Schools That Give a Fuck. Well, taking a quick break yesterday, I heard some sad news. One of my favorite English teachers from high school, Mrs. Harvey, had passed away. She was my grade 12 English teacher, and when I think back to her class, the thing that rings out in my mind, and I'm sure for many of her students, was the advice she gave us. There's one piece in particular that sticks with me, and I heard her say it I don't know how many dozen times when referring to our writing: cut your darlings. Now, Mrs. Harvey didn't come up with this saying. The advice, kill your darlings or cut your darlings, is attributed to Arthur Couch, a British writer and scholar. In his 1914 book on the art of writing, he urged writers to remove any sentences, phrases, or words that they're overly attached to, even if they are beautiful, because they may not serve the overall clarity, flow, or impact of the piece. Mrs. Harvey often jokingly told us that we should always cut off the last two sentences of every essay, story, or chapter because we'd probably already said what we were trying to say there. Mrs. Harvey was the first teacher I had ever had who actually didn't want us to write more. I remember her once saying, "More isn't better, better is better." She was the first teacher that actually pushed this idea of concision. So to honor Mrs. Harvey, I removed 2 full pages of my book yesterday that were a darling. But before I do, I wanted to share them with you because I still think the ideas are worthwhile, even though they won't end up in the final edition of the book and have been replaced with a more concise analogy. So here we go. In this text, I'm referring to how the term school isn't detailed enough to use when discussing school development or improvement. Because ultimately there are 3 types of school: expert, coach, and counselor schools, each with very different cultures, practices, and organizational structures. You see, school isn't specific enough of a word. And that is why we need to use this 3 types terminology to clarify exactly which type we are addressing. Imagine a sports field where there are football teams, golfers, and a tennis club, all trying to play their sports simultaneously amongst each other. The games overlap. Quarterbacks are bumping into people trying to make a serve in tennis, golf balls zoom over the head of the end zone, and tennis balls roll onto the putting green. It's quite chaotic. Now, if someone asked what's happening on that field, you could say sports. And technically you would be correct. But sports isn't very precise. That one word doesn't address the diversity of the 3 different activities on the field. This is us now when we use the word school without clarifying which type we are talking about. We are using a word that is too general for addressing what is really taking place. A better answer than just saying sports would be to identify the 3 distinct sports, to say there's football, golf, and tennis happening on that field. Then perhaps go on to explain the different aims of each individual game. We need the same type of wording to discuss schools in a meaningful way. In education, we must begin to acknowledge the 3 distinct types of school within our current system. Like the 3 sports on the field, each type of school has its own unique goals and strategies. Imagine inviting a trainer to our chaotic field. You tell them, "We want these players to play well." It would be pointless for a coach to address all of the players at once without acknowledging each game separately. To be effective, the coach must identify the sport each group is playing, understand their goals, and define success for each game in order to offer useful next steps for improvement. Escaping a sand trap requires a different strategy than rushing the end zone or positioning your feet for a serve. What benefits one type of school disrupts another. What strengthens one type of school can weaken another. The same applies to staff. Qualities that make a teacher or leader excel in one type often don't translate to another. Overlooking this is a major source of frustration in school and professional development efforts. Each type of school and its specific type of teachers, experts, coaches, or counselors serve students and require their own distinct role for teachers. So what are the differences in expert, coach, and counselor teaching job descriptions? So Mrs. Harvey, in your honor and memory, About 26 years after being a student in your class, I'm still benefiting from your instruction. Are there things a special teacher told you that still stick with you? Let me know in the comments. To stay in the loop about when a copy of Schools That Give a Fuck will be ready and in your hands, check below to the links for our newsletter, Instagram, and private Facebook group. Like, share, and contribute meaningfully in schools.